Hey everybody, I came on just a little bit early to make sure that I could get the feed working right here on Facebook. It looks like everything's working right, and I'm live here on Instagram. And I just want to share with you what I shared earlier at 11 o'clock when I was talking to both audiences here on social media about having confidence in chaos. That's right, confidence in chaos. And the reason why this is such an important concept, I think, during this particular time period is because all of us are dealing with difficult struggles, difficult situations. And in the middle of all that, we have this pandemic that has ravaged the world and it seems to only be getting worse. And so the key is we need guidance, we need direction, we need understanding, we need wisdom, and we need faith. We need all those things. And I believe that it's very imperative that we teach the supernatural in situations like this. And what do I mean by that? So you have the super part, which is the part that only God can do. And a lot of us get that part right. We get that whole faith piece right. But then there's the natural part. There's the part that you have to do. And this is vitally important as well, because if you don't do your part and God does his part and you don't do your part, then the supernatural doesn't work. The natural is a part of that process. And so the super part of it is we need God to protect us. We're believing that God will protect us and keep us and all of that. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But then the natural part is we have to do those things to make sure and ensure that we're being safe. So, you know, I believe in spiritual things, but just putting some oil on your forehead or over your door and thinking you're going to be all right and doing what you want to do is not going to do it. You have to be able to, you have to understand the protocols for washing your hands. You know, most of us hopefully wash our hands after we use the restroom, but this is a different protocol. You have to wash your hands after you touch any object out in public because someone infected could have touched that object, and the virus is said to be able to live for up to 3 days on any surface. So they could have been infected, touched it 3 days ago. You touched it, and when you touched it, then you got infected. So supernatural is twofold there. So the super part is what God does. The natural is what you can do. And so, of course, if you're sick, quarantine yourself and all that good stuff. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I just wanted to cover a little bit of that from the beginning. What I really want to talk about is how to have confidence in chaos. Because out of everything that we're already dealing with, some of us already have chaos in our life. And now we have to throw a pandemic on top of that. And how do you process all of that? How do you deal with all that? So the first thing I want to talk about is it's okay to have anxiety. It's okay to be afraid. And I'm not putting anybody down, but I've seen a lot of people saying, you know, we don't fear and we don't have fear and we don't have anxiety and all. And I know that I understand where people are coming from when they say that. And it's, you know, it's like they're trying to be empowering when they say that, but it's simply not true because all of us deal with fear. Fear is an emotion. It's something that is there for a reason. And sometimes we need to be afraid because it causes us to operate and act in a certain way. So let's look at this from a spiritual standpoint. So I know what everybody will say. 2 Timothy 1:7, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind, right? Okay, I understand that. So it sounds very empowering. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but when you look that up in the Greek and you check out the true connotation of it, what it's actually saying is God has not given us the spirit of a coward or cowardness, which simply means that it's not that we're not going to have the emotion of fear. It's not that we're not going to have to deal with fear. It's not that anxiety is not going to come. It's that when it comes, we have to be brave enough to face it. And so having the emotion of anxiety or having the emotion of fear, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a natural emotion. But according to 2 Timothy 1:7, God has not given us the spirit in the original Greek of a coward. So he's not saying that you can't have these emotions. He's saying that you don't cower down from it, meaning that I'm able to face it, I'm able to deal with it, and able to put it in its proper perspective. So how do we do that? Well, Philippians 4:6 and 7 says, be anxious for nothing. Careful in one translation, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Verse 7, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. So what does this mean? First of all, for Paul to just tell me not to be anxious is one thing. And I don't know about you, but in my life, when people tell me not to be something, I seem to automatically be that. Just like when they say don't touch your face out in public, I'm not touching my face, but that's the first thing I want to do. Everything starts itching on my face when somebody tells me not to touch my face. My point is, just telling somebody not to be anxious is not enough. Just telling somebody not to be anxious is not going to suffice in them actually not being anxious. You have to give them tools on the ability or how to deal with anxiety. So how do we do that? Well, he gives us the formula. He says, be anxious for nothing, but here's why. He's not saying anxiety won't come. He's not saying that fear won't come. He's saying, let me show you how to deal with it. And let me take it a little bit further. I think that fear plays a greater part in our life than most spiritual or religious teachers want to acknowledge. And I really draw from Paul Tillich, one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century, when he said something very powerful. He said, doubt is not the opposite of faith, but it is a part of faith. What he was saying is that when you have real faith, you will doubt your ability to be able to do it, which will make you lean on God and say, Lord, if you can't do it, it can't be done. That really real faith should produce a type of fear, because you should be afraid to try to do it on your own because the dream is so big. And that's just one example. But let's look at what Paul was saying. He said, don't be anxious about anything. Now, he's not saying you're not going to be. He's going to tell you how to deal with it. He says, but by prayer, supplication, with thanksgiving. So let's look at that. Prayer is an overarching word. And so the first thing I want you to understand is whenever you find yourself in a difficult position, it's always in order to pray. But I want to say this. There's a lot of people right now that are saying that this coronavirus is God's judgment on the earth and God's judgment of people. And they're saying a lot of things like it's a judgment on God's people because we're not praying enough or we're not spiritual enough. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a few reasons. I don't believe it, number one, because I think there's a lot more people praying than we give credit to. Like that's kind of the go-to thing when something bad happens. If my people would pray, seek my face. There's a lot of people praying. I've been praying consistently for almost my entire life, or at least the past 25 years. I've been praying pretty consistently throughout that time period. And I mean, I get up every morning and spend time in prayer. And guess what? Bad stuff still happens in my life. Bad stuff still happens in the world. Even though I am faithfully praying, bad things happen. And that's because it's not based on that. Life hits you from many different directions and with many different things. And then sometimes things are happening and we're blaming God. You know, I was teaching this message this week, probably one of my last speaking engagements for a while, but I was at a speaking engagement this week and I was telling them that when the scripture says in Psalm 66:12, thou hast caused men to ride over our heads, that the writer is actually saying that God allowed it to happen. So a lot of times we're blaming the devil for stuff and it's God that has allowed things to happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? In your life. And so, but the reason why is because he sees something greater in your future. But I don't believe that this is a judgment on people. I don't believe any of that stuff. I just believe that it's a virus that's been born and it's trying to take people out of here. And we're doing all we can to stop it. And it's not because we haven't prayed enough. I think there's a lot of people praying. And it's not because we don't love God enough. I know thousands of people that love God. I just spoke in Africa in front of 20,000 people that love God, and millions worldwide or throughout the continent of Africa and Europe or through television. My point is, I don't believe it's those things. And I don't think any of us have the answer. If we had the answer of why this was happening, then all the prophets in 2020 would have said in 2020, we're going to have a pandemic that hits the world. But nobody was saying that, right? They were prophesying how great life is going to be and this is going to be your year and all that good stuff. So the point is, We don't know. We're doing the best with what we have. So what do? He says you pray. Now watch this. I've been praying before the pandemic hit. So, that's what I really want to get us in a place where we pray before bad things happen. But it doesn't mean it's too late to start praying. So, yes, we should increase our prayer, or we should have been praying this whole time. But prayer really is for you to get yourself in line, to get yourself in order, to get yourself in alignment, to get yourself in a place where you can see God's power manifested in your life. So this word prayer in Philippians 4 and 6, actually, I was looking it up today in the Greek, and it means a specific place to pray. Now, I don't want to take a lot of time with this, but I do want to say this. I believe that we need to have a specific time and a specific place. I have one in my house, time and place that we spend time in prayer and we cultivate a relationship with God. Because all of these problems that we have, we don't have the answers to them, but God does. He has the answer to the problem. And that's the reason why we need to pray, because he can give us the answer. He can give us the instruction. He can give us the guidance. So he says, pray, first of all, and supplication. Supplication means making your request. So the way that you lessen your anxiety, the way that you deal with your anxiety is you engage God in prayer, because he has the power to give you confidence. He has the, when you're connected to God, you have a powerful confidence that is unshakable. Why? Because I'm connected to the most powerful entity in the universe. And this connection lets me know that God has my back in everything that I'm doing. Isn't it refreshing to know that God has your back? And look, I know you've been through so many things. We're not even talking about the virus now, but I know you've probably been through so many things. You've wondered, does God really have my back? Listen, everything in the end is going to work out for your good. Romans 8:28 said, and we know that all things work together for the good to them that love God, that are called according to his purpose. In the end, it has to work. So, but he said prayer and supplication. That means making your requests known. You have to come to a position where when you have anxiety, when you have worry, when you have fear, whether it's over coronavirus or anything else, you bring this request before God and say, God, I can't deal with this thing on my own. I need your help. And then look, he says, with thanksgiving. And I love this because Thanksgiving is one of the most powerful places you can be in. Being a grateful, thankful person is one of the most powerful energies you can release into the atmosphere. I know this personally because I do a thankful journal, a Thanksgiving journal every single day of my life. And what I do is I used to only write out the things I was thankful for that were working good in my life. And there were a lot of those that I could find. It's amazing what you can find when you really think about it. But I actually started thanking God for the things that don't seem right in my life, because I understand that God sees the future, which means he knows that this thing is going to turn out for my good eventually. And so I've learned how to thank him for everything that I've been through, even the negative stuff, even the mistakes I've made, even the problems that I've had. I've learned to thank God for all of that stuff, because I know it's making me into the person I'm supposed to be. And God has allowed certain things to happen in my life so I could grow and develop. I am the man I am today because of everything that I've been through that's brought me up to this point. And I'm thankful for that. Then I'm thankful for all the things that I have in my life. I don't have everything that I want. I don't have everything right now. And maybe you do, but most people don't have every single thing they want, every single thing they desire. And so I bring that supplication before God, but I may not have it yet, but I do have some things. God has been good to me in so many different areas, and I am thankful for that. So I write out those things that I'm thankful for. And then the things that I'm believing that God is going to do for me. You know, Mark 11:24 said, whatsoever things you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them and you shall have them. So I'm supplicating, praying, and I'm thanking God that I already have it in advance. That's a powerful place to be when you're thanking God in advance. That's when you detach from the outcome. When you say, I don't know how it's going to work, but I know it's going to work. And then I'm believing God that I already have it. So he says, don't be anxious for anything, but these are the three things you do. Pray. So cultivate your prayer time. So if you want to get confidence in chaos, you got to cultivate a prayer life. Start today. Make today the day that you start cultivating that prayer time. Then the second thing you have to do is supplicate. You have to make your request known unto God. and then thanksgiving. You have to be willing to thank God for everything you've been through, thank Him for the things that you have now, and thank Him in advance for what He's about to do. Now, what happens when you do that, it says in verse 7, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall guard your heart and your mind. The peace of God. I want to say this. I was reading a book recently, and I think it's Dr. Jampolsky is how you say his last name. I can't quite recall it off the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not coming to my head right now. But anyway, he says something very, very powerful. He said that the number one goal of your life should be peace. Think about it. If you have peace, you have everything. I have peace because I believe that God has already worked it out. I have peace because I know no matter what it looks like right now, God is shifting my situation. I have peace because I know and understand that God is changing things in my favor and working things out. That's a great place to be when you're in a place of peace. He said He'll guard your heart and your mind. Listen, it's in the mind that you have to deal with this. And I was teaching the other night and I was telling them, I used to blame everything on the devil, but I don't really talk about the devil that much anymore. And the reason why I don't talk about him that much anymore is not because I'm not spiritual. I actually do it because I am spiritual. And what I mean by that is I used to be rebuking the devil all the time and casting the devil out and doing all this stuff. And one day it occurred to me that the devil is already defeated. So if the devil is already defeated, then why do I keep fighting somebody that's already beaten? All I have to do is take authority. All I have to do is let him know that I know who I am. And when you know who you are, you become a powerful person. That's what I'm talking about today. Confidence in chaos. Remember who you are in situations like this. Remember whose you are in situations like this. Confidence is a powerful thing. It is a magnet force. It attracts into your life what you're believing God for. It attracts blessing into your life. And so He said He'll guard your heart and your mind. That's where the battle is. It's in your mind. And when you can start taking charge of your thoughts, you become a very powerful person. So let's talk about that. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Now, this word cast in the Greek is to cast to throw upon, or to place upon. I was researching this years ago, and I can't remember if I read it in a commentary or if I read it in a Greek translation. I'm not sure. But I do remember reading that one translation of this, or one of the connotations of this verse, is that this is like a beast of burden, meaning like a donkey or a camel were the examples that were given, meaning that you can take your burden, your anxiety, your problem, and you can put it on a animal that is made to carry, or you put your stuff on an animal that's made to carry it. God's saying, I'm that kind of entity. I can handle your anxiety. I can handle your worries. I can handle your doubts. I can handle your fears. But here's the key. I think casting is something that doesn't happen once. I think it happens multiple times. Let me explain that to you. So super deep religious people would tell you, just cast it on the Lord and you're good. Well, what happens when the thought comes back? Because for me, I don't always just get over something in a second. I don't just get it's done and I don't ever think about it again. Usually when I go through something or I have something on my mind, like a pandemic, it's something that stays on my mind. It's something that I'm thinking about all the time, which means that I have to continually cast this burden on God. So when it comes into my mind, I cast the burden on God to get relief from it. And guess what? It may come back. And let me say this to you. Fear and anxiety is a part of being human. Stop trying to think that stop allowing people to tell you that you're not spiritual because you have fear, or because you're playing it safe, or because you stayed home from church today, or whatever they're saying. There's a lot of people saying a whole bunch of stuff, and they can say whatever they want to say. I'm saying to you, it's not a lack of faith. It's actually being smart and using wisdom. We talked about the supernatural. The super part is God's part. The natural part is my part. So what I'm saying to you is that you got to get yourself in this space and in this position where when this anxiety comes back, because listen, the pandemic isn't over. When it comes back, cast it on God again. When you start worrying about it, cast it on God. So how do I cast something on God? That becomes the legitimate question. I get so tired of people telling me to do something and then they never tell me how to do it. So how do you cast something on God? Well, I believe it's a process. And I believe it's something that is done in different ways. I think one way to do it is to get in prayer, to literally go into prayer and continue to talk to God about how you're feeling until the feeling leaves you. That's one way that you can do it. Another way that you can do it is to have a continuous conversation with God throughout the day. And I know that's foreign to some people, but honestly, I have this kind of running dialogue with God. And I'm not saying I've got it all together, but I have this kind of running dialogue with him at all times because I want God involved in every aspect of my life. And so I am continually having worries and anxieties and fears that come on me. And I take those things and I turn them over to God. And this is one thing I do. I call it surrender. I say, God, I'm not able to handle this. I can't even handle it mentally right now. I can't handle it emotionally right now. Have you ever been through something you couldn't even recognize yourself? It hit you so hard you couldn't even recognize yourself. Like you lost your vivaciousness, you lost your sense of who you were. Like you used to be this strong, powerful person. And I mean, like, what do you do when you're the person that's always helping everybody else out, but now you need help? Well, this is where you have to cultivate this ongoing relationship with God, this ability to turn it over to him. And guess what? It's not going to go away just because you say some what you think are magical words. Lord, I cast this on you. That don't just mean the feelings go away. You may have to continually wrestle with this and deal with it until you get free. But eventually, if you're mentally tough enough and spiritually tough enough, eventually, and I shouldn't even say that because it takes a lot to be mentally and spiritually tough in today's society, not just having a pandemic, but just in life, period. It takes a lot to be a tough person. Stuff hits you from so many different angles, it will knock the strength out of you. And so you have to really become a person that really connects with God. And sometimes what you go through messes with your connection because sometimes you feel like it's God that's allowing this stuff to happen in your life. And sometimes that's the case too. But I don't want to get too far into that. What I really want to talk about is establishing connection with God, establishing a routine with God, establishing time where you spend time in prayer, and then having this ability to continually cast it. The thought comes in my mind. I'm not going to ruminate on this. I'm not going to let this story play out in my head. You know, your mind will give you a whole scenario of all the negative and bad things that are going to happen. You got to stop that story before it begins. And you do that by casting it on the Lord, that anxiety. And then it says, because he cares for you. In the original Greek, that's translated to be of interest, which means God is interested in what I'm interested in. Man, God cares about what I'm going through. He cares about how I feel. He cares about how you feel. And some of you right now, it's not even about flus and viruses and things like that. It's just everyday life. You feel down. This is just throwing more fuel on the fire. You're going through so much stuff you don't know how to even hold your head up. Well, let me tell you something. God cares about you. He takes interest in your problems. He takes interest in your struggle, and he is more than able to fix what you're in. Man, I have had God step in at the last minute. Let me say this, past the last minute and do something miraculous and completely turn things around in my life. And I still believe that miracles happen. Now, I don't think you should live your life miracle to miracle. I think we should live a principle-centered life. But sometimes you're in a position that if God doesn't do it, it can't be done. Well, let me encourage you. I told him the other night, if God did it in the past, he's certainly going to do it again. He's going to bless you again. He's going to bring you out. He's going to keep you. You got to get your confidence in chaos. You got to get yourself strengthened. So what's some more ways that we can do that? Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this, that he which hath begun a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. The word confidence in this verse means to convince. So now we're going to get to the root of this. How do I get confidence in chaos? How do I cast my cares on the Lord? What is the practical application? How do I do this? Well, this word confidence in Philippians 1:6 means to convince, which means I have to convince myself. Now, we have become the masters of convincing other people. We got everybody fooled that we got it together. And I mean, a part of that is a part of living life. You know, You don't want to put your business out there to everybody. You want to look like you got it all together, but on the inside, you're dying. On the inside, you're coming home and you're crying yourself to sleep, or on your way to work or back from work, you're crying the whole way because you're worried and concerned and bothered and scared and hurt and broken and crushed. But he says you have to convince yourself. Now, here is the key. You have to be willing to change your beliefs. Now, beliefs are difficult to change because many of them are inherited. The other thing is, many of them are solidified by the multitude of things that we've been through. You believe something because it's always been like that, or because you've been caught in this cycle or this loop of it happening over and over and over and over again. But you have to break the cycle. So how do you do that? I have to get outside of my situation and grab a hold of something spiritual and pull it into my situation. Now that sounds all esoteric, but let me tell you what I'm doing here. All you have to do is start to tell yourself a different story. That's where it begins. It begins by talking to yourself, speaking out of your mouth what you want to happen instead of what is happening. And this is powerful for several different reasons. Hebrews says, hold fast to the profession of your faith, which in the original is the confession of your faith. So many have called it a confession. It's also called an affirmation, affirmare in the Latin, which means to make firm. So whatever you speak out of your mouth becomes firm in the spirit realm there first, but it's only a matter of time until it manifests into the natural. So what I have to do is I have to start speaking out of my mouth what I believe is going to take place. That's why Romans 4:17 said we call those things that be not as though they were. Now, when I say it out of my mouth, it's coming back into my ears, and I'm starting to convince myself of what I'm saying. Like, okay, if your money's not right, don't speak about how bad it is. Start speaking about what you want to happen so that can come back into your ears. If you're in this crazy situation that we got going on, start speaking health and healing over your life so you can start to convince yourself of that story. That's how you gain confidence. Listen, don't wait on somebody else to boost your confidence. Boost your own confidence. Speak life over yourself. The Bible says in Proverbs 18:21, death and life. We say it backwards. We always say life and death is in the power of the tongue. But the verse actually says death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So you have the power to either speak death over yourself or life over yourself. And I believe the reason why death was listed first is because it's our natural inclination to speak death. But I want you to speak life over yourself. I want you to speak your own confidence into being. Decree and declare what you are going to become. Don't talk about where you've been. Don't talk about where you are. Talk about what you believe is going to happen in your future. So as I go a little bit further, Isaiah 32:17 said the fruit of that righteousness will be peace. Its effect will be quietness and confidence forever. Once again, finding peace in this chaotic situation, finding your confidence in chaos. Peace in this word means completeness, soundness, safety in body, welfare, health, and prosperity. When you got peace in every area of your life. When you can grab a hold of this peace, going right back to the verse we were just talking about, be anxious for nothing. Okay, it's good to tell me that, but how do I do it? Prayer, supplication, thanksgiving. Once I've prayed about it, once I've made my request known, now I'm going to thank God that it's already done. And when the thoughts come up in my mind that it's never going to work, I'm going to get thankful and say, God, I thank you that you're working this out. I thank you that you're turning this situation around. I thank you that you're changing things for me. There's power in prayer and there's power in thanksgiving. And so this will bring a peace, because he says in verse 7, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds. This peace is the same peace that this righteousness bring. Now watch this. Righteousness means to be in right standing. Now, this doesn't mean we're perfect, because none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And I want to just dispel this myth right now. Just because you make a mistake don't mean you're instantly going to hell. If that was the case, all of us would go to hell. All of us would be done. We all make mistakes. We all do the wrong thing. We all say stuff that we regret. We all do something wrong all the time. It's just a part of human nature. But righteousness is the ability to get things right. Get it right with God, get it right with other people, and get it right with yourself. There's the greatest feeling in the world is to be lined up, to be in alignment. And I believe that comes through the power of being able to forgive others and forgive ourselves. Now, watch this. He said, in quietness, or that in righteousness there will be peace, and its effect will be quietness and confidence forever. So when you find this place of peace, you open yourself up to this eternal confidence. And confidence here means security and safety. And that's what place I want to bring you to. God wants you to be in a place of security and in a place of safety. All right. Let me see here. I'm going to give you one more. Hebrews 4:16 says, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in our time of need. This word confidence means boldness, freedom in speaking. Now, this is powerful. What he's saying is, I always thought this just meant, bold that God had my back. And it does mean that. But even further, it means bold enough to say what I need to say. There's this thing called the bread of his presence, and one translation of it is the bread of his face. And one connotation of that is that when you come in God's presence, you get in his face. And that's a powerful thought. And he's literally saying it here in Hebrews, that you can come boldly before the throne of grace, that you can come openly, frankly, without concealment, which means you don't have to be all cute and pretty in your prayer. Like, that cute and pretty prayer everybody does. Oh, God, I thank you. Touch right now, Lord. Heal right now, God. Thank you, Lord, for being so good. Yeah, that's all good and fine until you have a real problem and your prayer changes. When you get real with God, then you can start getting real change in your life. When your prayer starts to change to a place where you really voice what you're dealing with, how you're feeling, what you're going through. Because remember, God cares, casting all your burdens on him because he cares for you, right? Okay, so I can come boldly before him. I can come and I can express what I'm really feeling. I can deal with the real issues of my life. I can deal with my struggles. I can deal with my problems. I can deal with my pain. And a lot of times the reason why we're not getting breakthrough in our prayer time is because we're not getting real with God. We're not getting real with God. We got to be real about the situation. And let me say this too. You got to be real with yourself. I don't know how to say this, but I went a long time in my life where I was delusional. I was a faith delusional person, which means that I wouldn't allow myself to feel anything. I wouldn't deal with any feelings. I wouldn't deal with any emotions. I wouldn't talk about a problem. I just had this mentality, we got to get over it. Just get over it. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. Keep it moving. I used to have a motto, I don't make excuses, I make it happen. But guess what? All that stuff caught up to me. And right at about 40, I'll be 45 this month on March the 24th, but right around 40, it all caught up to me. All this pain started leaking out into my relationships. All this hurt started leaking out into my life. And I had like this emotional almost breakdown, if you can call it that. And it was because I had never dealt with the trauma in my life. I had never dealt with the pain in my life. And at 40, I got real with myself. And I said, from that moment on, I'm going to be real with people. And I was always kind of real with people, but I'm going to be real with myself too. And I'm going to deal with things. I'm going to deal with the emotions of it. I'm going to deal with the pain of it. I'm going to deal with the struggle of it. I'm going to walk right through it. And every tear I got to cry, every bit of anxiety I got to feel, the depression that may come, whatever I got to deal with, I'm going to walk through it, because when I come out on the other side, I'm going to be better than when I started. And that's the place I'm trying to bring you to. God wants to give you confidence in chaos. How does he do that? Now watch this. Here's an amazing thing. I learned this about anxiety. One thing about anxiety is the way that you overcome anxiety from a strategic level. One of the main reasons. Oh wait, hey Mark Stevens, all the way over in England, man. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. You got to get me in England. I haven't been over there in a while. But listen, one of the things about anxiety is it's said that one of the ways to overcome it is you have to put yourself in the situation that causes you anxiety, and you have to do it continually. And the reason why is because your amygdala is firing. Not your amygdala. I'm sorry. Your is your amygdala. Now I got my facts. Anyway, you got a part of your brain that's firing, and the part of your brain that's firing is your fear response, your fight or flight response, and it's firing out of order. So you're afraid of a situation you shouldn't even be afraid of. So once you put yourself in that situation enough, you start training your brain to now understand it is the amygdala. You start to train your brain to understand and believe that there's nothing to be afraid of. And this is why God sometimes will put us in the same situation over and over and over again, because he's training us to understand that we have nothing to be afraid of. He's training us to understand that we have nothing to be scared of, that we can stand in the midst of all this. Now, let's clear this up before I go, and I'm going to go. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Watch this. We love to tell people don't be afraid with this verse. But what this verse actually means is God has not given us the spirit of a coward, which means I may have feelings of fear. I may have feelings of anxiety, especially with the pandemic going on. You should be a little bit afraid because it'll keep you sharp. It'll keep you smart. But watch this. I'm not overcome by the fear. I face the challenge with courage. I face the challenge with faith. I face the challenge knowing that God has my back. I love you guys. I appreciate you, and I hope this helped you today. Remember, you can have confidence in chaos. God bless.